What's up, players? It's finally the day I make an updated Wesker guide. The first video I made was about 11 months ago at the time of recording, so I thought I'd make a new one. In that time, I've gotten P100, and I've played about 700 to 800 hours more. As well, in that time, I've used almost every add-on that Wesker has to offer, looking at you, Loose Crank. In the next hour or so, who knows how long this can get, I'll explain everything you need to know to master the Mastermind. See what I did there? Timestamps will be in the description, and you can also scroll chapters in the YouTube watch bar. Starting off, what I think everyone is itching to learn before it gets taken out of the game is the hug tech. In my opinion, you'll want to spend a lot of time in custom games perfecting your hugs. I recommend choosing Gideon's and using Thanatophobia, which will make sense very shortly. Along with that, Deadlock, Corrupt Intervention, and No Way Out, which will all delay how fast the bots can escape from the custom match. You'll want to add 4 bots and give them all no mither, which will give every bot a 20% debuff to completing gens and giving you even more time to master your craft. Finally, for the add-ons, you'll want Leather Gloves, which will take your power recharge from 11 seconds to 10 seconds, and Ouroboros Vial, which per survivor will reduce your power recharge from 10 to a blazing 8 seconds. As far as I know, bots still aren't that likely to spray, and you can also use a cut coin if you absolutely want to, which will reduce the bot's chances of spraying even further. After you did all that, load into the game and try to find a stack of boxes as I do. The higher your FPS, the easier the hug tech is. Anything below 72 is next to impractical, and I don't recommend if you have the options. This stack of boxes is where you'll learn the checklist you should mentally do before every hug. So now that we're in Gideon's,
I shall release Ouroboros.
yeah, Wesker. This is a perfect box right here. Step 1. Take a look in front of you for anything that the game might think you bound into. With a hug tech, you are carrying your momentum around a corner, and so you want to make sure there's nothing in the area of where the game will think you bound. So here, I'm going to hug tech this corner, but really the game thinks I'm going to do this. But in actuality, the game thinks you're coming around the corner. Step 2. Estimate the horizontal distance of the object you're hug teching. As you can see, this is a fairly medium-sized box. This is about the same width as this spot here. And so, if the obstacle is too wide, it will eat up a lot of momentum and essentially nullify your hug tech. So if I were to do this one, which is fairly wider, I don't go as far. Now, step 3. Assess the collision along the horizontal bumps. Along the horizontal... Step 3. Assess the collision along the horizontal distance for any bumps or inverted debris. I would be doing this if you're recharging your power or reading if the survivor will leave the loop. If there's a random rock on the loop, it can make you moonbound, which essentially sends you back the way you hug-teched or eat up your momentum and leave you stuck in place. So here, for an example, I'm going to hug this way, and you see I bounced off of this workbench, and so it's not going to come around this edge. In step 4, look for a place to grab the survivor into. It's awesome to get the hug tech, but you also have to be looking for a solid object to smash or throw the survivor at. Is there a wall close that will also make the survivor lose distance running back into the loop? So as you can see, there's a pallet right here, and if a survivor was standing, let's say, on this corner, right? They don't know what you're doing. They're trying to figure out, oh, what is this Wesker doing? He's insane. He's so good at the game. But in reality, you're just trying to hug this corner. Let's say I do a second dash hug. I want to make sure that I'm throwing this survivor into that corner. You see, she's the farthest from the pallet in here and in safe room. If I were to, let's say, pull the survivor to the left, if I were to do that, I'm pushing her into this wall, and she can still make this pallet with ease. If I were to, let's say, grab her here, and I push her this way, that could also work too. really depends on where the survivor is standing. I would recommend just going into Gideon's, doing exactly as I did. And really, I think the best way to practice your hug techs is lining yourself up with the wall or the corner that you want, and just slowly press D to go forward, and then mix in S there, and you will feel your collision. You will feel your character start to speed up. And that's really when you want to release the hug tech. Just like that. And just like that, I had about maybe 7 or 8 minutes. In a custom game, I wish Behavior would add a sandbox mode. It would make just custom games in general much easier. I absolutely love this skin. You guys will be seeing this video well after 2v8 has released. But Krauser's knife is such an amazing touch, and I'm so glad they added it. So for the next one, you'll want to find this room right here. You typically have either a pallet on this location, or like you can see here, it'll be here. But really, we're focusing on this forklift. So this is a much harder hug tech than anything else. It is a little bit rounded, and you do have to be on 90 FPS, as I'm on 120, in order to actually grab a survivor. Most of the time. Most of the time. See, as I got more distance there, the lower your FPS, the less the game has to calculate, or like the less the game has to judge how fast you're, or like how fast you're going. So essentially, the less the game has to read off of, the less accurate it can predict where you'll end up, essentially. Basically how Wesker is coded is that it will make a initial, like, calculation. See, if I were to do a second bound here, I would probably end up, I don't know, right about here, I would guess. And so the game thinks that, well, if there's nothing in the way, he's not going to collide. So it allows me to get more distance because it's calculating less. So with the easiest stuff out of the way, I think the harder, or the rounder the corner is, the harder it is to hug tech. As you can see, this is a fairly round corner. There's no, like, immediate... It kind of just slopes instead of that immediate acceleration, like on a really sharp corner. But this... I would say this corner is actually fairly simple once you get the hug tech down. I would say one of my favorites that I can never really get into a game. I'm on the wrong end of the map. One of my favorite hug techs in the game, the Gideon, not the entire game, is over here on this railing. Okay, so I'm trying to get this. There we go. See how much distance I got? And if I have 2 bounds instead of 1, because I was an impatient little bastard, you get so much distance. Because you're mid-air with the hug tech. You get so much distance, and it puts you forward. Obviously, you're going for style points with the hug tech. It's a very impractical thing, but it's very much, like, clip-friendly. So now with hug techs out of the way, I think we'll get into probably my worst Wesker tech, which is Skinny Berts. Coined by Elranican, a Skinny Bert is essentially using Wesker's relatively ginormous collision box and redirecting your bound path to slide along a wall. There we go. Okay. I'm like getting the hang of it, I guess. If you bound close enough to an object, as you can see with this wall right here, it will automatically trip the collision detection, but not make you collide. As you can see, I slid along the wall, even though the game thinks, if I stand right here, the game thinks that I will go in a straight line. What the game thinks versus what the game shows you is completely different. Yeah, I really wish Behavior would just make a sandbox mode. This is painful, dude. It's on my third go of a custom game, and I'm like halfway through the script. Alright, so I believe... yeah, I go this way. So probably the skinny Bert you've seen most in clips is in this room here. Essentially, in a real world, or like a real game situation, depending on which way the survivor is taking you. So let's say the survivor is looping you this way, right? And so you want to pull power here, and then you're going to bound this way, and then you want to do that. So essentially, you're trying to get close enough to this wall that it will trip your collision detection. Essentially, that it will turn off, because it thinks that you already collided here, but you didn't. It's really weird that you have to actually connect with what the game thinks you're colliding with. So, because my collision box collided already with here, it's not going to collide with here. It's not going to collide with anything that the game would think that I would collide with if I were just to go in a straight line. So essentially, it will just slide you off of any surface that you want. I believe... oh, let me find the staircase. Give me a quick second. There's one staircase on Gideon's that is nasty, and I still have not gotten it in a real game. It's this one. This staircase is so gross. Fuck. It's such a weird angle, too. Essentially, it will think that you collide with this box here, and it will send you straight, just like it happened there. But really, you will slide off of the railing, and sadly there's no pallet here, so I can't, like, give you a real example, but you will slide off of here and collide with a survivor if they're camping the pallet. There we go. Just like that. And I end up completely through the pallet, so any survivor that was camping it, I was going to grab. Oh, it was this one. Yeah. It was this one. Okay, so... yes, there you go. I couldn't remember which staircase it was. So essentially, with this one, you are trying to line up... it's better if you have an overlay, but you are trying to line up your dash to go here. As you can see, looking from this way, it is very precise, and that's how pretty much how precise Wesker's dash hitbox is. Fuck. So essentially, like, you have to be close enough to the box, but you also have to be at such an angle that you don't go through the pallet and you slide off of it. I don't know how I got it the first time. It's kind of just like beginner's luck, I guess. Fuck. I did it right the first time. I just didn't have, like, quite the angle. Oh. See, I got through the pallet, but it collided with this corner instead of going through it. This is probably one of the harder skinny verts I've seen. Just because of the angle. Nope. I'd also recommend in, like, a real situation, as I was saying before, to use egg. Of course, it allows you to line up your skinny Bert. But here, like I said, you want vial and gloves so you get faster recharge. I'll try to get this again. But unlike hug text, bouncing your first bound into the wall gives more time for a survivor to realize what's going on, as a skinny Bert requires almost perfect positioning from you and the survivor. You know, with hug text, you just have to go around the corner. But with skinny Berts, you have to get the right angle. You can't have the survivor standing here. They have to be right here. So So I'd say skinny Berts are a lot harder to hit in a real game situation. Yeah, no, I'll just... And I would say the most skinny Berts you would want walkie, just because it makes your second dash longer. Just like pretty much everything, you know, hug techs, skinny Berts, you really just want walkie. But also, this foot, I don't know why they still haven't, like, removed this foot. Not only do survivors get stuck on it, but Wesker gets stuck on it. And because there's this chain right here, it's a solid object, this chain, you can't pull survivors through this. This is a solid object and you can't pull survivors through that, which sucks. But I think I've covered everything with skinny Berts, and so let's move on to rebounds. I'd say probably the most practical in really every chase tool that Wesker has. We're going to go to whatever random auto haven. I would say Wreckers, maybe Gas Heaven. I think Gas Heaven has better pallets for rebounds. So with this, you would want Egg instead, because it allows you to get more distance after rebounding your first bound. So essentially, if you aren't caught up, a rebound involves using your first bound to bounce into an object, which will give you distance bouncing off, and then will allow you to use your second bound almost instantly to grab the survivor. This will mostly be used at 50-50 pallets, so like filler pallets, just pretty much perfect example right here to my right. So with this pallet, you have, well, maybe not perfect. So essentially, like, if the survivor for some reason gives you pallet, right, I can use this tree to bounce off of here, and it will instantly let me get my second bounce, or my second bound. So in like a real situation, I would go like this and this, but you know, if the survivor is hugging this more, you would want that tighter. But let me find a better palette here. So this tree, actually, this birch tree over here, is a great example. Most survivors will pick this longer, longer area, because there is this window that they can jump into. So you want to be a little bit more precise, but if I were to, like, say, you know, faking this, go into this tree, and then I have my second bound instantly up to grab the survivor if they were, like, sitting right here. Which, I mean, you know, it would make more sense that the survivor would run to the window, but essentially you are using your first bound to collide into an object, and it will instantly bring up your second bound to grab the survivor. Actually, a great example here with these lockers is that
playtime is over.
With these lockers in this main building, what you can do is that lockers essentially don't have a collision marker, so you will slide off of most lockers, which is why we're gonna go to RPD. I totally fucking missed. Next example, we're gonna go to RPD. There's a couple that I actually really like on RPD. So essentially, you can, like, slide off of this locker and instantly get your second bound up. There is one hug tech that I want to try. I don't know if I'll get it. I'll probably cut most of this out. There we go. So, yeah, essentially you're going to bound off of this post, and it'll slide you along this car. It's essentially like a skinny Bert and hug tech in one. I should have been on West. I can show probably my favorite rebound, at least on this map, because people love to camp this pallet, and it's incredibly strong, actually. depending on where the other pallet spawns on West, it can be quite weak. But right here, the perfect locker rebound is either way, honestly, because these lockers are in such good positions. But depending on where the survivor is, you know, they might be camping a pallet right here. So you'll want to fake this side, and then you rebound into the pallet. And look at that. I'm already dead center in the pallet, just off of one bound into a locker. So essentially, you want to kind of use the locker as like a launch tool, and then egg will kind of give you more distance, essentially because it's giving extra time in between your bounds, that it will extend the speed boost, I guess, that you get after bounding. You know, sometimes a pallet can spawn here, so you want to take control of the pallet, and then you're gonna rebound into the locker, and boom, you're in the pallet already. Oh, if you have a survivor hooked, it will corral you because this isn't big enough to get you stuck. So if a survivor is hooked here, it will corral you, and then you get a really nice rebound. But essentially, you can do one of these. I did post a TikTok just not so long ago. You can rebound this. I did it with Dracula. And another hug tech that I've been trying to hit in a real game is actually... I think everybody knows about this one at this point, where you bound out, and then you get enough distance to grab the survivor if they're camping this. But I just recently saw a TikTok about this hug tech. And it's kind of hard to do because you're essentially like bounding a pallet, but it's more of like an inside angle. So it's a little bit harder. There we go. And you get so much distance. I don't know why. There has to be like some kind of fucky... I imagine you like propel off of these chairs, honestly. But another really good rebound spot actually is this area right here. Sometimes there can be a pallet spawn if the pallet that sometimes God pallet can spawn there, but if it spawns here, then this pallet will spawn in this spot, and so survivors will actually play it. And so if you didn't know, both of these walls, this one and this one over here, have basically negative collision. So it will give you just enough time to rebound that way. And if you want to come this way, even though a survivor could just technically leave, you can do that as well. Another spot that I kind of like is this one. This is a 50-50 pallet, and if you're not running Enduring, it kind of can be a little bit hard to outplay against a really good survivor. So what I like to do is bound into this wall, and then immediately flick onto the pallet. So let's focus on Weskers. We're going to want to go to Sanctum of Wrath. It doesn't really matter, you just want the main building. And essentially what a Wesker is using your first bound to launch off of elevation. And it will give you about 2 to 3 times more distance, when your first bound could give you about 7 meters, let's say. Hills are tricky, as it depends on like what map you're on. Ormond hills really only work from like the sides. You can't really just go straight off of them. Whereas like Macmillan hills are very forward heavy. You kind of can't go off the sides because it has weird collision. You'd think they would just like change the textures. No, this is behavior we're working with. So the most infamous Wesker that I think a lot of people have seen is this one going off of main building. Essentially, it allows you to just fly. As you can see, it just allows you to fly. There's another hill over here. And so a lot of the older maps that haven't been updated recently have really good hills for Weskers, as they did not think to put in a lot of... Dude, really? As they did not think to put in a lot of invisible walls. You know, for like a couple months, they took this out of the game and added like an invisible wall for some reason. Sky Wesker spots that are higher than one story typically involve an escape tech. So, Sky Wesker spots that are higher than one story typically involve an escape tech, which is escape tech is lowering your FPS so that the game thinks the game has less info to react upon, and so it will just launch you. As you can see there, I went flying. I think I bounced off of something. Really, Wesker and like most dash forward killers work off of your frames per second to calculate where you will land. And as I said, by pressing escape, it will lag your FPS and give the game less frames or less like bytes of information to react upon. So if I were to go this way, and I collided with something. Map has so much shit just out in the open. But if I were to go like this one, I don't go anywhere, right? I don't even leave the staircase. But if I were to escape tech it, let me get my double dash back so I can get egg. If I were to escape tech it, I go flying. Don't really get that much distance because I bounced off of something again. But this one is really nice because there's nothing really in the way. As you can see, I just go flying. Like a lot of main buildings released in the last 3-ish years have invisible walls that stop you from an escape tech. So do be mindful of that. You know, something like Ormond Lake Mine that just came out. Toba off the balcony had one for a while. And let's actually go check that out. See if Toba's fixed. And Garden of Joy still has an invisible wall. Although they removed it for like one chapter and then it came back. I don't know. For an escape tech. It used to. I know you used to be able to do this. Yeah, it sort of has an invisible wall. I apparently bounced off of something. Let's check it with the egg this time. It's like, I don't see what I could... Maybe they added just like a full invisible wall, so I'll just try to go straight this time. Yeah, no, there's just like an invisible wall, like right here. It used to just like never let you get off, so I mean, that's better, I suppose. But then I'll spend the rest of this video detailing far more advanced concept with Wesker, starting with Insta hug text. Now, I posted, I think, a short on YouTube forever ago of me trying to get a Insta hug tech, and I actually did get it. So I think if you are trying to practice your Insta hug techs, I would not use Unicorn or Walkie. Just try to get the base and then work your way to a Walkie or like Unicorn, I guess. Certainly you could work. I'm not really sure what the best map is to practice your Insta hug techs. I'd imagine, honestly, like, let me think here. Got my thinking cap on. What map would have the most open tiles? I'm kind of thinking some Batum, right? Is that crazy to say? Some kind of Batum map? Dead Dog works. Dead Dog works. You could certainly get something with Dead Dog. It was on Forgotten Ruins, I do remember that, but it wasn't exactly the cleanest. Let's try Dead Dog. So let's try to hug tech this first. See how easy it is. Seems pretty easy. So essentially what you want to do is line up the corner that you're trying to hug. So like, let's see how far out do I have to be. So I have to be right about here. So I'm going to want to turn about right here, back up, and I'm hitting the pole. God damn it. Right about here is good. I was a little bit off, but as you can see there, I'm using my first bound to set up a hug tech rather than just like standing at the corner you're trying to hug. Fuck. I've gotten maybe like 4. It's not something I really wanna or like care to go for. It is like insane clips. Dude, my TikTok feed is full of like the most cracked Weskers hitting like insane insta hug techs, and it's just, oh, I love all of you guys. So just like right there, I almost had it. If you're going from the left side, do press your W or D key, as it will actually like enable you to get the hug tech, because if you're just bounding straight forward, it's not going to register that your momentum is carrying around the corner. You're just going to bound forward on your second dash. Oh, I almost had that. So one hug tech that I've seen going around is called a bump hug tech, or a bump tech. And essentially what you're doing is bouncing off of... like, this is a perfect example where you're bouncing off of this, and it will set up a perfect hug tech right here. I would recommend probably going this way. Just like that. First try. Dude, I'm gonna try this for the next 5 minutes, and I'm not gonna get it again. I'm not gonna get it again. I'm so good at doing it the first time, and then just I get it the first time, and then I just fuck off and do nothing. But there's the bump hug tech. It's supposed to be the next part, but I kind of gave up on insta hug techs. I'm not that good. But as you can see, you're supposed to... There's a lot of palettes. I would say, like, Auto Haven has a lot that you can practice on. But you want to get a bounce, and then it will perfectly set up a hug tech. So another one that you can do is actually Basement. But Basement isn't here. Basement Shack, you can do a bounce hug. Which honestly, dude, like, Basement, or like this door is sometimes really hard to hug tech. So I don't blame you if you go for a bounce. But I'm on 90 FPS, so it is kind of considerably harder. I almost had it there. Yeah, we really need a sandbox mode, man. I'm so sick of, like, custom games lasting 4 minutes because bots just instantly leave. So yeah, with bump hug techs, that's a great spot. The water tower is really good. You know, insta hug techs, I would recommend AKA Nasty. He is insane. I follow him on Twitch. I think we're actually friends. I don't know. But yeah, he is nasty. He's nasty, and he's nasty at the fucking game. That guy is insane. But I think with everything in techs and just getting better at Wesker, let's actually go into add-ons. So essentially with his add-ons, I think there are 3 categories. Really, you have slowdown, power, and then like quality of life add-ons. Most slowdown add-ons really kind of do suck. There's one add-on, Red Herb. Increases the time it takes for survivors to use a first aid spray by 2 seconds. So essentially what this add-on does is that maximum you get 24 seconds of slowdown off of this. It's not really that good. Really, like, the only 2 slowdown add-ons that you should be using is Iridescent or Burst Vial, which right now is kind of bugged. And I'm not going to say why. And then also VCD, which gives you 30% infection passive gain rate, which for some reason Green Herb does this, but when a survivor is grabbed. So typically you'll get 25% of your infection meter when you get grabbed. Green Herb will make that, quick maths, like 33%, 35, 36, 37, 30, 36, 35 or 36. It will make it 36% instead of 25%, which is like Completely useless? I don't understand. Really, like, green herb should be 100% if you want this to be an actual add-on, where VCD, even just by the numbers, VCD is incredibly better. With the power category, only really a few are truly bad. Obligatory loose crank mention. I don't know why this is even an add-on. If you didn't know, loose crank increases the speed that you move by 8% in the same window that egg does. So it will give you 0.32 meters of distance. 0.32 meters of distance. It is so bad, it's not even funny. And with egg, that is 0.48 meters of distance. With parent, like, using both of your add-on slots, you can't even get half a meter of extra distance between bounds with these two add-ons. And it's not even like egg's bad. Egg is great. But loose crank is just that terrible. So please stop using loose crank. Okay? Now on the other end of balance, in the power category, you have lab photo, unicorn medallion, and jewel beetle. In my personal opinion, jewel beetle is like a top 10 add-on in the game, and lab photo is incredibly strong by itself. Unicorn medallion is just really good. Getting that extra distance on your first bound means that you have more control. You don't have to wait to get two tokens on your power. And lab photo works really well with leather glove, as really almost anything does. But the special interaction with lab photo and gloves is that at least one infection now, after they made gloves base kit, will instantly recharge your power. So kind of like, when Blight had Compound 33, if he just crashed into a pallet, it would like instantly recharge his power. That's kind of the same thing with Wesker, except he actually has a cooldown. With these three add-ons, they kind of just make Wesker a little bit too easy to play, and so I almost never use them. And really, the last category, quality of life, is just small and like minute number tweaks that actually do make a noticeable difference. With Ouroboros Tendril, 5% while moving, 5% movement speed while charging Virulent Bound is kind of similar to Shiny Pin on Huntress, where you kind of get used to it, and it kind of just doesn't seem like anything. But also, I just reading through the script, I just realized I said three categories and quality of life was a category, and then I'm like, it's only Tendril. It's either like most of his add-ons are literally just slowdown or power, and like none of like egg I guess can be quality of life, but holy shit, dude. But some add-on combos I recommend are, as I said before, lab photo and gloves. Will recharge your power after you break a pallet, even if I think like with one infection now instead of two. Eerie Vial and gloves for the fastest recharge that you can possibly get. And even something like joystick and bullhorn, which will make a survivor's aura shown to you, and then they're also oblivious. And you can use this in kind of like Terror Radius, tricky builds. Since Wesker does have the largest base Terror Radius in the game at 40 meters, my main add-ons that like I almost never change is just egg and gloves. They give you the most bang for your buck, the most value that you can get. And lastly, I would recommend that egg and walkie are really what you should be using to get hug tech clips. Since they made gloves base kit, you really don't need gloves and walkie together. But yeah, that's it. If you guys have any questions about something that I might have missed or I didn't explain thoroughly,
please leave them down in the comments below. If you made it this far, I would greatly appreciate it if you left a follow on my Twitch, Wesker with a 3, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Peace out.